Hello everyone, I'm Dante from Low Mana and welcome to another This Week in Anthem. Here I run through all the news, updates, interviews and community spotlights that you should be checking out each week. Well, this week has certainly been a lot more eventful than the last. We have not got any of the full announcements we've all been waiting on, but we have had a fair few questions answered, some website changes and several pictures of the game in its current state. Starting yet again with cosmetics and the Legion of Dawn edition of the game. Only a brief clarification that no, as you would expect, you can't unlock the Legion of Dawn pre-order cosmetics in the game. They are exclusives for pre-ordering. But look how Mark answered this question. You can't earn the pre-order Legion of Dawn cosmetics, however, as implied here, there are other Legion of Dawn cosmetics that you will be unlocking. Certainly isn't confirmation on what this exactly means, but it does add to what I think some of the gear will entail, as part of both the story, lore and general looting cycles of Anthem's endgame, due to them being from what we currently know as the founders of the Freelancers, maybe the Dominion and all sorts of other factions, places and traditions. Due to their connections, uncovering their past will be a clear way to add depth to the javelins, NPCs, our enemies and even the gear we pick up. Something that has been mentioned previously with gear sets, that certain styles of loadout can be based on past javelin pilots from the lore, much like how Diablo gear sets are based on historically powerful Nephilim that have fought off evil in the past. The second part related to cosmetics this week is specific to animated cosmetics, such as burning helms, fancy lighting effects, etc., that are in a fair few games these days. Unfortunately, we'll not be seeing any of these right away. That said, it seems we are likely to be getting some in the future. I would expect this might be something they add in future raids as a special reward or specific completionist task, a very classic way of giving rewards. Although in the current age of live services, I suspect that if and when we see them added to the game, most will be marketed as purchasable cosmetics from the in-game store. At least we can earn them in-game, so it might be worth saving up whatever that currency ends up being, as long as the prices aren't astronomical, but that's a topic for another day. That's it for cosmetic updates and on to more mechanical updates, starting with level caps, a long running question with no exact answer in sight, though I feel I can give a pretty reasonable estimate. Firstly, Mark has a very notable point in his response. Relevancy to cap requires a lot of additional context, and he's exactly right. Fundamentally, what is the purpose of a level cap? A clear line of progression to show how far someone has come, and in a game like this, it represents when the endgame begins. From that point, there are many ways games take it, from the basic access to any abilities or perks, to unending levels that keep building your character and their overall power. So with that said, I would guess that we're going to have two initial levels, the first being your pilot level, capping out at I presume as 50. If the game has kept the older UI showing the player levels, this is what I think you'll see. The second part being the javelin level, all of which level up individually. So having the same level cap of 50 seems less reasonable. I presume this could be around the 30 mark to give it a chance for some breadth in terms of passive skills. Honestly, this could be anything from 10 to 50 pretty easily, as we know so little about what the levels even mean or how many options to expect. So back on to the original point. I think the levels will be around 50 at launch, and the reason Mark has no way of giving us an exact answer just yet is because the number is mostly meaningless, until we get the context. Are there Paragon levels? What kind of progression is it? When do we reach the cap and what happens after? All of which is going to take some time to explain and needs a backdrop of progression as a whole to truly make sense of it. While we're on the subject of levels, there have been several questions regarding story progression and playing those missions with friends. So if you have a friend that's just picked up the game, can they still play with you? Yes, they can. But what content does that consist of? Well, what you can do for certain is join them on their missions, so even if you're already completed the core story, all missions are always available, so you won't have to go through all of the in-between mission cutscenes, etc., but you can go through the missions with your far higher level javelins. Can they do the same to your level though? Initially it was sounding like they might be able to join any mission someone has available with the exception of content that might be considered true endgame content, such as raids. This is not the case. Or at least it seems unlikely. Their current internal shift is that you can go back but not forward, which let's be honest makes far more sense in the long run. This way prevents you skipping important story details while preserving the intended feeling of progression. Which in a roundabout way takes us into our next topic, It has been confirmed, and continues to be repeatedly confirmed in every Q&A, that there will be no pay for power, no pay to win, and especially no loot boxes. All great things for us as consumers, despite what some publishers and even a few developers would have you believe. There is one other type of non-cosmetic microtransaction that until now was still up in the air, because as far as I know, no one had actually asked about it specifically. Can we pay to skip? This simple question led to a rather long chain of tweets and replies, and seems to have given a clear answer to Mark and the development team. Mark starts off unsure and asks what our opinions are. Internally, it seems it has been considered, not for launch, but for whatever new content will come down the pipeline. DLC, expansions, free updates, or something I can't think of right now. Much in the same way other games do. This has been a very common practice for World of Warcraft for over 5 years at this point. The argument for the case of Anthem would be to allow players to skip straight to the very beginning of the brand new content. Seems fine in theory, but in reality not so much. In a game like Anthem, where loot and the endgame are the majority of the experience, the progress through the loot when a new expansion comes out should allow you to pass over the older content. However, the story is different. It's the main focus at the start for sure, but in the end it's a small portion of the game, and you only have one character. The javelins are all separate, and drop loot for the highest level, at least currently. This is the exact opposite to an MMO like World of Warcraft, where you can have 10 or more classes who separately need to go through the 100 hours of content to catch up. But back to the tweets and the initial point of my rambling. The community has spoken, for now at least. There will be no boosting mechanics up for purchase. It might be revisited, but I think this is certainly the right decision. On to new potential mechanics, and as a rather interesting idea called photo mode. This honestly wasn't a system I was that aware of because it's a specific system tied to consoles. A more evolved form of a screenshot that pauses the game and allows you to take angled pictures. The same feature is also in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. The issue we have though is that Anthem is always online, so you can't just pause the game and take a picture. The alternative I can think of is a way to record or take an instant picture. If you could record a short clip in full 3D and then go back and change the angles for an image, I think that could work. Unfortunately, I don't think that tech is easily applied and is likely to be hard to implement. Seems Bioware is potentially working on something along these lines. Perhaps an interesting update we'll get post-launch. Now it's time to talk about gear and equipment slots in general, something we get drips of information on every couple of weeks, and this week is no exception. Starting with the basic stuff, can we equip 2 of the same weapons? Yes, we certainly can. I doubt this extends to legendary items, but it's possible it does. It does seem like the ammo is linked to the slot, not the type though. So if you're a Colossus who really likes giant machine guns, you've got the option to carry 2 of them on top of your loadout. They have even opened up, although briefly, about the Interceptor, which along with the site update confirming their melee weapons as double-bladed daggers, allowing the Interceptor to perform multi-attack slashes, causing them to chain attacks. Somewhat different to other javelins from what we know so far. This is supported by a recent tweet from Ben Irving, who tweeted this: "We decided to make some gear for the Interceptor to allow for a melee build, maybe plural." A stark contrast to other statements made by the team, showing their reactions to fans and setting the Interceptor apart rather dramatically, which I personally think is needed. Just going fast doesn't really explain the combat style as succinctly as other javelins have. Possible multi-gear sets really opens up the potential for an Interceptor too, making them more closely in line with a traditional rogue, just in an advanced power mech suit. Sorry, that was a bit of a segue from carrying 2 guns, but I think it kind of fits together. In the same vein, we had questions related to what abilities can be equipped, such as being able to use a flamethrower and using the mortar. Yes, you can. This is because we have 3 slots, which Mark goes on to confirm, which are the shoulder, arms, and support. Mark did confirm that these slots are indeed limiting. Equipment is specific to certain slots, so you won't see anyone running around with dual flamethrowers, for now at least. Oddly enough, while we're talking about supporting equipment, the official Anthem website has been updated again, removing the muster point ability from the Ranger. Apparently this ability didn't meet their expectations, so it'll be reworked or replaced entirely. The next tweet we had related to gear is that solo players will, as we assumed, be able to create their own combos, as long as they build their loadouts to include abilities and weapons that can cause enough of a status effect, then trigger it with another. All good news for those in the community who want to spend some time alone, fighting off scars or playing through the story. And finally for gear, we had a tiny look into what the gear tiers means in terms of perks. Fortunately, it won't be long until we start seeing perks on our gear, as they should start appearing on just uncommon items. I doubt these will be significant, but at least they should start getting us more interesting pretty early. I just want to see what type of perks these actually are. If they just do minor things like improving accuracy, I'll honestly be a little bit disappointed. Moving on from gear and onto other technical updates. Hopefully something that should put people's minds at rest when it comes to technical issues. Due to Anthem being a live service, relying on dedicated servers, it means that optimization of the game will continue into its future. They can't just release the game and patch it several months later, not if they want it to be successful at least. I suspect that they'll be judged with increased scrutiny following the release of Andromeda. That had multiple issues in both performance and animations, leading to some interesting interactions with NPCs. And finally, the last subject I wanted to talk about today is on the reasonable number of pictures from within Edmonton that have been tweeted out this week. We have images of what Fort Tarsis looks like in-game, a still from what Michael Gamble confirms as level 3, while level 1, so this sounds like an inside joke around changes they've made, but that image does appear to be some kind of shape of wreckage, or perhaps some kind of ruin of a once advanced facility. The final image I want to talk about is one of a long-awaited Storm Ultimate and its UI. It's still not really that clear what's going on as it's just an image. That said, it seems pretty clear that just like the Colossus, we get a special UI once activated. The storm includes a yellow bar, probably indicating its duration, a fancy blue haze I assume to add depth and immersion of activating such a powerful ability of the storm, and lastly, we have a very unique UI feature right about where you can see it impacting, 3 symbols. Which if you've been following Anthem for some time, you'll recognise from the very first gameplay video they put out. A frost icon, a lightning icon, and what I think is the fire or explosion icon. Which would imply that the storm gets 3 ultimate abilities rolled into one. Able to pick the exact element they want to use to set up or detonate combos for the team. Undoubtedly doing huge damage in the process. This kind of utility is interesting to see, and fuels the power fantasy of the storm. Now if we could just get an animated version, or better yet, try it out for ourselves. Outside of the teasers we get from these pictures, I think they are actually alluding to something we as a community have been asking for. By that I mean the framing of these shots look rather like how you would film a developer update, on a brand new reveal or deep dive if you were talking to the developers who made and implemented them, rather than having your standard press release, which I'm sure we'll get as well, though if my hunch is correct, to me at least, it feels like we should be expecting a new update from possibly Ben, Michael, Mark, or a combination of them, plus some other developers who worked on the game. Looks like the abilities, reveals, and insights into the ever-elusive Elder game is just around the corner. That about covers all the news I was able to compile together for this week. This video ended up being rather long in comparison to some of the others, so do you like this format, or would you prefer if I split them up into smaller bite-sized topics? Please let me know in the comment section below, along with your thoughts on any of the topics I went through today. As always, links to everything I spoke about will be in the description below. If you enjoyed this episode, then please leave a like or a dislike if you prefer. You can subscribe to support the channel and hit the bell to be notified of future content as it goes live. But until next time, I've been Dante, thanks for watching.